Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this week's edition of the Let's Talk Thursdays podcast. I'm Brendan Plays, and well, I guess we're kind of winding down a little bit after all the WrestleMania activity. It's starting to slow down a little bit in the wrestling world because not a lot really took place this week other than, of course, the Superstar Shakeup. So this week on the show, we'll talk all about the Superstar Shakeup, and I was pretty opinionated about it on Twitter this week and, of course, on my forums as well. And I actually had a lot of people disagree with my thoughts and opinions on it, so we'll talk about that all throughout the show. That'll probably be the main topic of today's show. We'll break that down. We'll also touch on the JBL incident, what's going on there, will JBL get fired? So we'll chat about that as well, and there's also been a list announced of the top 10 paid wrestlers, and a lot of people have been talking about that, so I'll give my thoughts on that as well. So that's really all we have planned for the show this week because, like I said, not a lot really happening. Unfortunately, I'm doing the show a little bit earlier than usual this week, so unfortunately we won't have too many listener questions. We didn't get to the Facebook post this week, so I do apologize for that. A little slack, I know, but we will make sure that I get it done next week for you guys. So all those great listeners who continue to send in a question every week, I thank you. I really appreciate you more than what you know because, you know, we have the same, group of guys every week sending in a question. I really, really appreciate it. So unfortunately this week we won't have any questions again. Probably a week that we needed it, to be fair, but we'll answer all of, we'll probably spend a little bit more time next week if we can answering them all. So if you do have a question, leave one in the YouTube comment section down below and I'll be sure to get to it next week. So I appreciate everyone that continues to send in a question for me. Speaking, I guess, of the channel this week, we had a great week. I look at March for my channel, and it was a bit of a slack month, I should say, for myself. I mean, I felt as though I didn't really upload enough. I was, in and out a little bit. And to be fair, I was kind of busy doing a few things. I had some exams going on. I also had, I went away for a weekend or so. So there's a couple of times, maybe have a bit of excuse, but I was a little slack, and I want to try and improve on that this month. And I felt as though we had a great start to April, so we've been trying to upload as much as we possibly can. So much so that once again I'm going away this weekend for Easter. But we've uploaded a little bit too much because now there might be a bit of a gap between Universe Mode episodes because Money in the Bank won't be this weekend. It'll be the weekend after, April 23rd, I believe it will be, on the Sunday. So we've only got 2 more episodes to go and two episodes to upload between now and next week. So a little bit over a week. So yeah, that's kind of poor planning on my behalf. But I guess that's just the date that it falls on. What can you do? But we might do a Talking Universe Mode next week, and we might preview the Money in the Bank pay-per-view for Universe Mode next week on that, so keep an eye out for that as well. A lot of people have been wondering as well, am I going to bring back the Power Rankings? And I do want to bring back the Power Rankings. I originally had planned to bring it back after Extreme Rules, but I just kind of forgot, to be honest. I just kind of was focusing on so many different things, and I just kind of forgot to do it, and I just... so that was my bad. So I would like to bring back the Power Rankings after Money in the Bank. So maybe now that I have a little bit of time in between the pay-per-view and Universe Mode episodes, maybe I'll try and focus on getting a Power Rankings episode sorted. So we'll try and bring that back. And the reason why we stopped doing it is because we were doing 2 episodes of Universe Mode in 2 days and then a Power Rankings video. It just got a little bit too crazy, and I just couldn't really keep up with it. Now it's more so we might get through 3 episodes of Universe Mode in a week, so then we have a Power Rankings video to go with that. So that's a little bit more manageable for myself, so I can do that a little bit easier. And to be fair, I should be able to manage it. I've got plenty of time to get these things done, but for some reason I just don't get everything done that I want to get done sometimes, and that's my fault. But we'll be bringing back the Power Rankings when we can, so I expect to bring that back after Money in the Bank, like I said. And after Money in the Bank, we're going to have the King of the Ring pay-per-view, and then a bragging rights. So 2 pay-per-views in the 1 month again. I guess we kind of did that this month already with TakeOver and Money in the Bank. But TakeOver, to me, is a hell of a lot easier to get done than a usual pay-per-view. It's half the length of time as it is, and we don't normally do a promo as extensive as a usual Universal pay-per-view. So it's a lot easier to do a takeover. But we're going to do King of the Ring and bragging rights in the 1 month. So that should be interesting. We also have launched the second channel, our second channel affiliate, Wrestling Shoots. So we've been doing pretty well on that. We've been uploading a lot of clips and podcasts all around the internet. Basically just kind of being a central hub for a lot of these podcasts, because there's so many different podcasts and interviews and things going on the internet. It's so hard to keep track of them all. So I figure that, there's other channels that already do this, but I figured I'll jump in there and I'll try and help out as well. Just kind of put them all in one little location, all the best parts, and you guys can go ahead and check that out. So that's in the description down below. So if you want to check that out, that would be great. We nearly hit 100 subscribers this week, so that was pretty interesting. It's interesting to go back and start a new channel and go back to the feeling of, oh my god, I just got my first 100 views. Oh, I just got my first 1,000 views. Wow, I just hit 50 subs. Wow, I'm about to get 100 subs. It's kind of interesting. It's, nostalgic almost to go back to those days when you're working on a new channel and hitting these small little milestones. But whilst they're so small, they're so meaningful at the same time. And then you look at Brendan Plays and you go, wow, I hit 59,000 subs this week. So it's, a bit of a contrasting difference there. So, so that was something that I've been working on this week. So that's one of my other projects I'm kind of focusing on right now. So trying to do as much as I can and trying to, stay busy. That's the plan. So that's all I have to really say about that. So, I just kind of wanted to fill in a little bit of time this week and just kind of give you guys a bit of an update what's going on with the channel. So, we launched Here Comes the Pain. Then that new series started this week. I personally I'm really enjoying it. I feel like it's like career mode done right in a sense, and I think that's something that I think you guys will certainly enjoy personally. So there was a lot of good feedback on the first episode. The second episode is a little bit of a different style to it. Not comedic, but a little bit more lighthearted. So I'm trying to kind of find my balance there, how I want to present it. So check out the second episode. I uploaded that today, and let me know what you think about that as well. So that's, like I said, that's all I really have to say about that. I guess we'll shift gears now, and let's talk about this brand shakeup. Raw, Smackdown this week, and the WWE. Things have changed. Now, have they changed for the better? Personally, I think Raw got the better end of it. Now, a lot of people tell me, Brendan, you are wrong. Smackdown got the better end of it. But I think Raw did much, much better. And you'll find that in long term, this will be more beneficial to Raw. So we'll run through the complete list of changes, and we'll start it with SmackDown. So Kevin Owens. So these are all the people going from Raw to SmackDown. So Kevin Owens, the US champ, Charlotte, The New Day, Rusev. It looks as though they're going to give Lana an in-ring push. I'm guessing they aired a vignette there that looks as though Lana might be wrestling now again and more on a full-time basis, perhaps giving her a gimmick. It looked as though she had some kind of, dancer thing going on there. I'm not 100% sure. Trying to, of course, sex her up a little bit there, but so she may be joining the women's division, or who knows, she may just be the valet for Rusev still. I don't know, but she's there, of course. Sami Zayn, the Shining Stars, Sin Cara, Jinder Mahal, and the return of Tamina. Now, we all kind of knew Tamina was already going to be on SmackDown, and I don't think it's a case of Raw loses someone and Tamina, and SmackDown gains someone there. It's really, finally Tamina returns, and she returns on the brand she was already going to be on. So a lot of people kind of telling me, hey, Brendan, SmackDown lost 2, and Raw gained 2, but, they got Charlotte and Tamina in return. Really, they got Charlotte in return. Tamina was already coming back. It'd be like saying Summer Rae just came back to Raw. And, that was, instead of getting Mickie James, they got Summer Rae. But Summer Rae was already on Raw, so they didn't really gain anything from, SmackDown. They just got someone who came back from injury who was already on their brand originally. So that's how I view the Tamina situation. Now, it was rumored that she was going to be on SmackDown. 100% official, confirmed. But let's be honest, Tamina she's going nowhere. And we'll talk more about her in a moment. Now, people going from SmackDown to Raw. So The Miz and Maurice, Dean Ambrose, Bray Wyatt, Alexa Bliss, Mickie James. Now, I'll stop there. Doesn't that already sound a hell of a lot better than what I just read out for the SmackDown people? Apollo Crews. Now, you can say what you want to say about Apollo Crews, but he's a guy I still think has a lot of potential. They just got to get his gimmick right. They just got to stop him from smiling. They just got to sort out his character. He's got a great look. He's good in the ring. I think he can get somewhere. So he's a real one for the future, in my opinion. I still believe that. Kalisto, which was a great call. That was the one that I was very happy about. Kalisto should be in that cruiserweight division. That's where he belongs. You know, he could be the luchador. I mean, I know they had, what is his name? Dorado, is it the guy with the black and the yellow mask? I'm drawing a blank. But whatever, that guy, Lindsay Dorado, I think that's his name. So they know they have him, but he has obviously been a bit of a flop, hasn't really done anything at all. I think he's actually been portrayed as a heel, as far as I know. I don't even know. So he hasn't done that great. So Kalisto might be able to be the babyface luchador in that division and try and revive his career a little bit, because he's going nowhere on SmackDown. So that's a good call. Slater and Rhino, I mean, look, they're not even really a tag team. So, the SmackDown, they needed to gain a lot more in the tag division. We'll talk more about that in a moment. So losing Slater and Rhino is not nothing. And, of course, they got Kurt Hawkins as well. So I guess we'll do a bit of a comparison between the two. A lot of people say, Brendan, look, SmackDown got Sami Zayn, they got Charlotte, and, they got the New Day, they got Kevin Owens. It's fantastic. It is great. There's great people on SmackDown, great. Kevin Owens, it was a given. If Dean Ambrose is going, Kevin Owens is going. And Kevin Owens has beaten everyone there is to beat on Raw, he's faced everyone there is to beat on Raw. So him moving was fine. Ambrose has beaten or faced everyone there is to face on SmackDown. So it's, very similar situations, and the change, needed to happen. Charlotte has beaten everyone there is to beat on, Raw. I mean, for God's sake, how many times have we seen Charlotte versus Sasha, Charlotte versus Bayley, Charlotte versus Nia? In some kind of way, it was just ridiculous. So those two changes were good. The one that I think is disappointing is The Miz, because I think The Miz had something really going well there on SmackDown, and I just feel like The Miz is not going to get that same opportunity over on Raw, or have that creative, that good creative behind it, because I feel like SmackDown's creative is far more superior. You look at the segments that they've been producing on SmackDown in comparison to Raw. To me, SmackDown's been killing it. The promos, the segments, the backstage interactions, the storylines are way more entertaining, in my opinion, on SmackDown in comparison to Raw. And I think The Miz has been such a great component and a big part of that entertainment factor on SmackDown. So him going from SmackDown to Raw, I think, is a major loss, and potentially could derail The Miz again. And I like to think no, but you never know. But The Miz was a guy who I really believe was on the cusp of getting back in the world title picture. And now you lose The Miz. Is he going to be in the world title picture on Raw? Hell no. I think he's going to get lost in the shuffle. So that's not a good move for The Miz, at all. But at the end of the day, let's say hypothetically The Miz stays, at the level that he is. SmackDown's losing a big part of SmackDown, a huge chunk of, a guy who's been taking up 20 minutes every single show, every single week, putting on some of the best work of his career. That's all gone now from SmackDown. That's a huge loss for SmackDown, and I don't know who's going to replace that. So I look at The Miz and Maurice, and I compare that. I guess the real comparison would be Rusev and Lana, if you want to package the two. But to me, I think the real comparison would be The Miz and Sami Zayn, perhaps. I think they're more on the same level. But Sami Zayn's had really no momentum at all. They've got no real direction with his character. They don't know what to do with him. They've, 1 week he was some, lunatic, speaking gibberish and looking like an absolute goof. And now they're trying to make him the underdog again. They don't know what the hell they're doing with Sami Zayn. And to me, I'm really sick of... I couldn't care less about Sami Zayn. And the problem is now he's over on SmackDown with Kevin Owens as well. And it's the same situation with Charlotte and Sasha Banks. I never want to see Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn versus each other again. I really could care less. And thank God they're not having a match for that US title anytime soon, because that feud's been overdone, and I'm just so sick of it. It seems like once a month we have Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens versus each other. If not, at least once every 2 months. It's, that's on Raw. Who knows how many times they versus each other on house shows. It's ridiculous. So maybe the real comparison is Rusev and Lana and The Miz and Maurice. And, well, Rusev's out with an injury, and before that he was teaming up with Jinder Mahal, and that was, losing every week to Enzo and Cass, going nowhere, really. So, SmackDown gains a guy with absolutely no momentum at all, and lose a guy, The Miz, who's been one of their top stars, one of their main, one of the big portions of their show. So, to me, Raw gains there. With the main event guys, well, Kevin Owens, I guess you compare him with Dean Ambrose, and Kevin Owens arguably, has been doing a hell of a lot better than Dean Ambrose. Dean Ambrose has been stale, been boring. I couldn't care less right now about Dean Ambrose, so that's great. SmackDown gains Kevin Owens, but maybe Raw, some fresh competition maybe will help Ambrose out. So, but you think about it, Dean Ambrose and Kevin Owens both been world champions, in the space last year or so. Dean Ambrose probably has been positioned better than Kevin Owens in more recent times. You're looking at their characters, yes, Kevin Owens is more interesting right now, so SmackDown will probably gain in the end, but still very equal level there, really. And Dean Ambrose beat Kevin Owens on his way out, so there you go. Now, Bray Wyatt. I guess, who do you compare Bray Wyatt to? If we're comparing The Miz and Maurice to Rusev and Lana, I guess Bray Wyatt has to be compared to Sami Zayn, and there's no comparison, is there? Bray Wyatt was just the world champion and just had a WrestleMania match for the WWE Championship. Walked into WrestleMania as the WWE Champion. And Sami Zayn was in the Battle Royal, so Raw gains a world champion, SmackDown gains a mid-card guy who's got no momentum or direction. You can say what you want to say about Bray Wyatt, his booking has been pathetic, yes. He should never have lost the WWE Championship, I agree. There's a lot of things that, Bray Wyatt's such an up-and-down character. Sometimes you feel like he's going great. Other times he's going terrible. It's hard to really invest in him anymore, but you cannot deny that Raw getting Bray Wyatt is a hell of a lot better than SmackDown getting Sami Zayn, let's be honest. And the only real place SmackDown probably wins is the tag team, but let's take a... I'm not going to really count debuts and returns so much, but SmackDown got Nakamura and they got Ty Dillinger. A lot of people are saying, hey, Brendan, SmackDown got Nakamura and Dillinger, so realistically they're doing a hell of a lot better than Raw. Well, you can't, that's redundant, because this is the Superstar Shakeup trading between the two brands, not debutantes. Raw got the Hardy Boys and the Revival in their tag team division that's already flourishing with so many tag teams, and they got Finn Balor back as well. So I think Raw's doing okay in terms of the returns and debut department as well. Whereas the only place that SmackDown really won was the tag teams. They got the New Day, and come on, give me a break. SmackDown has 2 tag teams on their show worth watching: the American Alpha and the Usos. 2 tag teams. Raw has Enzo and Cass, Cesaro and Sheamus, the Hardy Boys, the Revival, the Club. Did I say Enzo and Cass? It's just 5 or 6 teams who are pretty good, worth watching. They just lost the Vaudevillains too, SmackDown, even though they weren't going anywhere, but still they lost a tag team there. Hype Bros is no longer around. So SmackDown really only has maybe 3 or 4 teams as it is. So them gaining the New Day and the Shining Stars, is that really going to help that much? Yes, the New Day will help. But the New Day, they weren't even, saying that they're going to be here next week. They're saying they're coming soon. So they might not even be here for another month as it is. The Shining Stars, well, look, no one's ever cared about them ever. They've been Epico and Primo. They've pushed them. They've repackaged them. They've pushed. They just never have gotten over. So if you ask me, I would be letting the Shining Stars go. I think it's enough is enough. They put, 6-7 years into these guys. 6-7 years, being tag champs in the past, you put that much time into a team, and they've never really drawn a dime. They've never had any success. Enough is enough. I mean, surely you look at these guys and go, all right, it's not working. Let's let them go. They don't badly, they really badly want some kind of ethnicity, however the hell they say that word, on their brand that, they're trying to keep these, Puerto Rican guys around just for a bit of diversity. Is that the case? I don't know, but, they're not getting over. Their gimmick is, look, we're trying to sell, tickets to come to Puerto Rico. I mean, that's never going to work, is it? It's never going to work. So Smackdown gaining the Shining Stars is not going to help because they've already got Breezango, who are job guys. They had the Vaudevillains. Who else have they got? I don't even think they've got anyone else. So they're just gaining another jobber tag team, another, lower mid-card tag team that's going nowhere. So, if you ask me, that's just another burden on SmackDown. So they gain the New Day, that's great. But why didn't they gain Enzo and Cass? Why didn't the club come over? Surely Raw could have spared one of these tags. To be honest, why didn't the Revival debut on SmackDown? I get it, they want to have the Revival and the Hardy Boys. They want to have that rivalry. And there's, much more value in having them over on Raw. So many more tag teams diverse. But geez, you got 2 tag divisions. Let's not all put let's try that again. Let's not put every single good tag team on Raw and leave SmackDown with nothing, because that's what they're doing. And they've, what do they do to fix it? They've one chance to fix this. Let's send a couple of good tag teams over to SmackDown and let's even this up a little bit. They send the New Day and the Shining Stars. The New Day, who haven't really been wrestling that much and been doing this terrible ice cream gimmick that, I put them on my personal shit list because they've been so irritating and so unbearable to watch. So how is that going to fix SmackDown? It's really not. So they've really failed on a huge opportunity there to fix that tag team division with a shake-up. So SmackDown, yes, they do gain, but really it could have been a hell of a lot better. And we look at the women. I think it's pretty fair game in the women. I mean, Charlotte and Alexa Bliss. Charlotte is the number one. She's the top woman in the division, and then there's daylight between the second. So she's number one by a hell of a long way. But to me, Alexa Bliss is rapidly getting to her level. Now, some people aren't sold on Alexa Bliss. I am. I think her promos have been great. I think she's done a terrific job as the champion over on SmackDown. I guess it had to happen. She probably needed to go. And now they've got Sasha and Bayley to work with Alexa Bliss. I think that'll be some good matchups there. And Charlotte, well, she can have a rivalry with Becky Lynch, of course. A rivalry with Naomi. Maybe Nikki Bella when she comes back. So there's a few rivalries that they can do there. And that obviously will give a bit of life to both divisions. Because, I think SmackDown's women's division has been doing a hell of a lot better. There's just been... we're not seeing the same thing every single week. And there's some women there like, Carmella, who hasn't really had a chance to, be featured to the top, which they could comfortably bring her up and do something there with her. Natalia's been kind of pushed to the back burner. Mickie James was pushed to the back burner. So they had a few women there they could have done something with and still kept it, kept it relevant and kept, giving a bit of life to it. Whereas Raw just continued to pump out the same matches every single week. Same 4 women every single time. They added Emma to it. I thought there was a chance Emma might go over too because, they hinted that, Emma was saying, let's go. Or, I know that was meant to say, oh, let's go to the ring together. Well, let's be a team together with Dana Brooke. But I thought maybe, it could have meant she might have been going over to SmackDown. But doesn't seem to be the case. So I think Emma on Raw is a good fit. I wouldn't probably want to change that anyway. So SmackDown gets Tamina, who, like I said, was already coming. They get Charlotte. And they lose Alexa Bliss and Mickie James. Now, Mickie James, well, she's had a bit of a disastrous return, to be honest. But I would still put her far above Tamina. She is a 6-time women's champion, so she's like the Chris Jericho of the division. She's the veteran coming in. Unfortunately, she hasn't quite, caught on like Chris Jericho or anything like that. She's coming out to crickets, really. But, she's still a veteran. She's still a former champion many times. So she has credibility, and she always probably will. So Tamina, on the other hand, very injury prone, never really succeeded that much. They've pushed her all the time, then she gets injured, and she spent more time out injured than she has actively on the roster. And she's always kind of been, in a group or a stable. I think she was, Team Bad? Was that a couple of years ago now? So she's always kind of been the bodyguard or the sidekick to someone, never really been featured on her own. Because when she's been featured on her own, she's struggled. She hasn't got over. And then when they have her as the bodyguard to someone, she loses all the time. So it never doesn't work anyway. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if Tamina's ever going to get anywhere. And to be honest, she could be one who could be lined up to be released. Maybe not this year, but maybe next year if this next push or this return does fail. So, and I love how they were kind of hyping it up, like, second generation, yada yada yada, and Tamina comes out and she got absolutely no reaction at all. It was hilarious. And obviously Charlotte came out on that afterwards, so that was good. But it was a good crowd on Smackdown. Raw had a horrible crowd, abysmal crowd, terrible. Smackdown though had a nice crowd, so that was that made Smackdown a hell of a lot more enjoyable. And finally, I guess the lower end guys coming over. So Raw gets Apollo Crews, Kalisto. SmackDown gets Sin Cara, Jinder Mahal. Raw also got Kurt Hawkins as well. So once again, Raw wins there. Apollo Crews and Kalisto. Well, at least they've, Kalisto's been a US champ before. Apollo Crews has got plenty of potential. Probably needed to stay in NXT a little longer and just develop his character. I think probably called up a little bit too soon, and he's just kind of been thrown into the deep end here on the main roster and has, sank. He's struggled. So maybe they can revive him there on Raw. I don't know. Kalisto obviously will go straight in the Cruiserweight division, I think, and he'll thrive. Hopefully. I mean, I'm kind of really cooled off a lot in Kalisto. I think, from his, Lucha promo, whatever the hell that was, and he's botching all the time. Kalisto, to me, I thought he was great. I thought he, may not be next Rey Mysterio, but he might, have a solid career. I've really soured on him at the moment, so he needs to redeem himself in my eyes. Apollo Crews, I've always said here on the show that I think this guy could be something. I think he could be maybe even a world champion one day. They just got to get the gimmick right. They just got to find his character, and they're still trying, and they just haven't found that yet. So they might need to look to repackage the guy and try something different, and hopefully that will work out for them. Kurt Hawkins is just a job guy. Who cares about him? He's just the guy to come out there. What Heath Slater basically was, the guy to come out there, cut a promo, be a dickhead, and get his ass kicked. And that's exactly what happened. The Big Show knocked him out. So there you go. SmackDown. Well, there's a lot of rumors that Jinder Mahal may be getting a bit of a push. I'm hearing rumors as well. Aiden English is going to get a push as well. I mean, what Culture announced that Aiden English is going to get a push. Yeah, a real big push. He came out, he cut a little promo, did a little bit of a song, and he got beat by Dillinger in 5 minutes. So great push. Just another example of why they're not a credible news source. But hearing also that Jinder Mahal may get a push, I don't know about that now because he's concussed Finn Balor with a straight elbow or forearm right into the jaw of Finn Balor, and Finn Balor went down real quick. And can we say we're surprised? Jinder Mahal's a jacked up guy. He's been working hard in the gym. Got to give him credit there. He's jacked, and when you receive a straight, legit, forearm, or probably some of the elbow caught him as well, you got to go down. And Finn Balor's not a massive guy, so no real surprise. So Finn looks as though he'll be injured for, concussions can be 2 weeks to a month. Sometimes if it's really bad, 6 to 2 months. So I would say he'll probably miss Payback, and then he'll be back after that. And I don't think they really had anything lined up for Payback for Finn Balor anyway, so it's really not much of a loss anyways. He might not have been in on the show. It seems like they're going to have Finn Balor just beat some low guys and just, put him back on TV, get people accustomed to seeing him again, and beat some guys and build some more momentum for him. That was the plan anyways until Jinder, smacked him. So, and the other guy that SmackDown got was Sin Cara. And this is a strange one because I thought Sin Cara, well, he was going to be in the Cruiserweight division. That didn't, happen. That, he was there for a minute and then they stopped that. So, I don't know. And Sin Cara, that character has just been an absolute failure. I really believe they needed to, get rid of that character. Just end it. Hunico, the guy who plays it, I thought Hunico was better. Well, the guy who came out in like the little tricycle and or not the lawnmower like the Mexicals, but similar to that with Hunico and Camacho. I thought that had more potential than Sin Cara. So if anything, go back to doing that or something. But anyways, yeah, I just think Sin Cara is just done. It's done. No one's ever going to care for this character ever. It's just one of those things that people have given up on completely and never will give it another chance. So, yeah, I think the best thing is to retire the Sin Cara character. So, Smackdown again, getting Sin Cara. I mean, there's no potential there in him. At least Apollo Crews and Kalisto have a little bit of potential. Sin Cara has got none. And Jinder Mahal, maybe. The jury's still out. I still think he doesn't have a lot there. But, who knows? So that's the shake-up. So that's the comparisons between the two brands. And we went, pretty long. I'm glad. I wanted to have a good discussion about it. So that's why I think Raw got the better. I think when you compare the two, Raw just got, far better. Bray Wyatt, The Miz, Alexa Bliss, Dean Ambrose, so there's a few even trades there. But at the end of the day, I think Raw has, won this shake-up, which is disappointing because I think, if anything, SmackDown needed the breath of life into it because John Cena's gone until June, July. He's out. And in the women's division, Nikki Bella's gone as well. So their biggest name, their biggest star of the show, Cena, is gone. So then for them to lose, two main event guys in Ambrose and Bray Wyatt and a guy like The Miz who could have been a main event guy, and really they've got Kevin Owens, which is great, that's fantastic. But then you get Sami Zayn, and then Rusev, who has been treated terribly and booked horribly for such a long time. Rusev, to me, is great. He's got so much potential. Maybe this handsome Rusev, character could have taken off before he got injured. I don't know. So he definitely could be something, and this new opportunity and new booking here on SmackDown could be great for him. But right now, on paper, you compare the two. Without a doubt, in my mind, Raw did better. And people have been disagreeing with me. People have been saying, Brendan, you're an idiot. You're wrong. SmackDown, clearly won. But I really believe that they didn't because, they had a chance to really improve a few, issues on both brands. And perhaps they did it more so on Raw. The women's division needed improvement on Raw. They did that with Mickie James and Alexa Bliss. The SmackDown division, tag division, really needed improvement over on SmackDown. They really didn't do that at all with, the New Day. That's one team. So now there's 3 decent teams on SmackDown instead of 2. Fantastic. Raw still has 5 or 6, 7. And not only that, SmackDown doesn't have many contenders for that Intercontinental Championship. So I guess maybe they did improve that. They got Sami Zayn, they got Rusev. And obviously, it's a US title now, isn't it? And, got Baron Corbin, Kevin Owens. So they've got a few guys there. But, I guess maybe they did improve that a little bit there, perhaps. But because of that, and who's going to compete for the world title? They've got Randy Orton and they've got AJ Styles. Who else? I mean, Kevin Owens they can put back in there. He needs to lose that US title, though. Sami Zayn for the world title? No, I wouldn't believe that. Rusev? No. So, whereas Raw, they got Rollins, they got Joe, they got Reigns, they got Lesnar, Lesnar champ. They got Strowman, so they've got a few more guys, now Ambrose as well, so they've got a few more guys over there, Bray Wyatt, that can compete for that world title picture. So now, because they've lost so many main event guys, they either have to obviously build a few more up, which is possible, they can always do that. Maybe they do make Sami Zayn a top guy. It's possible, but, the way he's been booked, I doubt it. I couldn't believe it. Raw's got Chris Jericho as well. I forgot about that, but he'll be gone soon. And Finn Balor. So, I guess, I forgot to mention Dillinger. Ty Dillinger obviously compete for the US title on SmackDown. So, the question is, they've got AJ Styles, they've got Randy Orton for the world title picture. Kevin Owens, if they lose the US strap from him. The only other guy that perhaps they could bring up and people might, buy into that, would be Shinsuke Nakamura. And I think, that may be the plan. They've tried it a little bit as well with Dolph Ziggler. They've tried to, bring him up and try to elevate him for a rivalry over there. They could perhaps do that again, but he's been losing a hell of a lot as well, so he's more of the mid-card level as well. So they've definitely sorted out their mid-card, and they might probably elevate Baron Corbin. He might be one guy, so yeah, so they're just a little, they're lacking a little bit with their top names. We've seen it gone, losing, 3 bigger names. I think they're just lacking a little bit there. If they can make Nakamura a main event guy, that'd be great. I think, the reaction that he got on Smackdown this week was amazing, So I really believe that not just the WrestleMania crowd, but a lot more crowds are loving Nakamura and very excited to see him. So I think they'd be mad if they didn't, capitalize on that and really push him right to the top. And I'm not saying, win the World Championship this year, but be in contention. Definitely. I mean, I wouldn't be against him winning the world title, no doubt. But I think we'd all love to see Nakamura and AJ Styles. So, if they could get the title back on AJ Styles, which I believe, I'm a little surprised that they went with Kevin Owens and AJ Styles for the US title, because I really thought that the plan might have been Randy and AJ Styles feuding over that, world title for a while there. So, I don't know really who else steps up to take on Orton. Is it Baron Corbin? I don't know. So, there's a few question marks there with their main event guys. But the final little thing was Byron Saxton. He's gone to SmackDown. Otunga's gone to Raw. Both guys are terrible, so it really doesn't matter. All I could say is I really miss Mauro Ranallo on SmackDown. He was just best commentator in a long time, since, the JR days. In JR in his prime was, sensational. It was amazing. Just made every match better. I think Mauro Ranallo was very close to that. Just every time we heard him, he felt as though the match is more meaningful, the moves are more meaningful. It was just, felt like a bigger deal. Tom Phillips just doesn't do it for me. He just doesn't have that. He's a guy I think could definitely call like a main event, superstars, but, calling a WrestleMania match just felt odd to see that guy calling it, SmackDown pay-per-view. It just doesn't seem right. I just don't think he's good enough, to be honest. And Byron Saxton, we all know he sucks. And we'll get to it in a moment, but it was kind of funny watching SmackDown this week and watching JBL being super nice to everyone. Didn't really have a bad word to say about any wrestler at all. And even if they were a babyface, normally he rips into them. Didn't have a bad word to say about anyone or anything. He was nice to everyone. He was just good guy JBL this week, and I guess that's probably going to be the case for the next few months until this heat dies down. And I guess we'll segue into that discussion now. The JBL situation. It's all over Twitter. It's all over social media. Fire JBL. Bring back Mauro. Look, I've seen a lot of people come out and defend JBL and say, look, this guy's not a bully. But then I've seen a lot of people come out and say, this guy did this to me. This guy did this to me. And, when there's more than a dozen people who have had incidents where JBL's just been gone over the top, he's, threatened them, gotten in their face, had some kind of confrontation, a backstage incident, bullying, or, whatever. I think you've got to come to the conclusion that this guy is, there's an issue there. There's a bully there. We all thought he kind of mellowed out a little bit with his age, but it seems as though that hasn't been the case. Maybe he's just not doing it as often. Maybe he's just picking his spots. Maybe he's just picking a guy to pick on. So I don't know what to do with JBL. I mean, is he a great color commentator? I wouldn't say great. I think he's okay. I think he's, Corey Graves is, superb. JBL is nowhere near Corey Graves. So I guess when you compare the two there, no, JBL is certainly not a great color commentator. So who do they bring in, though, instead? They don't really have a lot of guys that could, fit the role. And that's the thing. A lot of, past generation guys, not really kind of doing on-air roles anymore. More agents and more trainers. Not so much managers or commentators or authority figures or anything like that. Yeah, you see a few, but not as much as I guess we used to see. When someone would retire from in the ring, they generally would become a manager or have some kind of on-air role, not as a in-ring talent. So we're not kind of seeing that as much anymore. Maybe the old guys not giving opportunities if focusing on new people, but it seems like their color commentators or their announcers these days are guys that wanted to be wrestlers but weren't good enough or got injured or whatever, so they've had to turn into being commentators. Whereas I guess we used to see retired wrestlers come in and do the role. So yeah, we're not seeing that as much nowadays. So JBL does fit that retired wrestler role. So if you did lose JBL, I mean, who have you got? David Otunga, he went nowhere. He was, he's got a great look and everything, but he was a terrible commentator, but didn't really have much success at all as a wrestler. Byron Saxton, did he even make NXT? I think he was in FCW. I don't even think he made NXT. So, and Corey Graves, I think could have been something. I think he would have been, decent with his, different look, his personality. I think he would have had a lot of success. A lot of people were comparing him to CM Punk. I don't know if he was on that level, but I think he would have had some success for sure. So, seeing him there is, fair enough. But, so we're not seeing a lot of, I'm not seeing any potential, retired wrestlers that come in and fit that role. I don't know who they would bring in to replace JBL. Maybe, William Regal would, but he's, really tied up in NXT, isn't he? So, and who's a guy in the back that they could bring in? I mean, Mick Foley, once upon a time, he was a pretty decent color commentator, but I don't think people would really want to see that anymore. I think Mick Foley's kind of lost it a little bit as well. So I don't know. Maybe they bring back Jerry Lawler. That would probably be the alternative. Jerry, good old King would probably come back and do it again. That's really the alternative. So if we fire JBL, we get Jerry Lawler, a guy that we were saying for years, get this guy away. Please get rid of this guy. So if we lose JBL, it's not looking much better. But look, JBL has done. He's if he has bullied Mauro Ranallo, that's WWE has to take some kind of action where they suspend JBL. They have to do something. They can't just push it underneath the rug and forget about it. Because JBL, he's all over their network. He's all over Smackdown every week. He's a prominent figure in the company. So it's not like he's a guy who, just works in catering and, you never see him and he's, got into an incident or he's a writer or something like that. It's not like that. This guy is a legend, future Hall of Famer, probably will be a Hall of Famer within the next 5 years. And he's all over the show. He's a prominent role. So they've got to do something about it. I don't think they've released anything about it. I think they're just trying to act like it's a rumor and, leave it at that. So it's getting bad because there's it's a situation where we're seeing signs in the arena, people being escorted out of the building with negative JBL signs. It's getting bad because social media is taking it, giving it a life, and I don't think it's going to go away until something happens. And look, Mauro Ranallo, yes, he was just an announcer, but he was a damn good one. And the announcing in WWE has been so bad for the last decade, probably since, probably last, 7 years at least, 7, 8, 9 years, it's been pretty bad. So when we finally get a guy who's pretty good and we lose him, that's a big blow. That's a huge loss. You might think, oh, it's just an announcer and he can be replaced easily. But you don't see great announcers coming along very often anymore, because if we did, then, we wouldn't be too concerned about it. We wouldn't have Byron Saxton. We wouldn't have David Otunga, because we'd have great color guys and we'd have great announcers. Tom Phillips wouldn't have a gig. We'd have someone better. But we don't. So, yeah. So, losing Mauro Ranallo is a big loss. And if JBL has, bullied him or something's got to be done. I know he's Vince's guy. He's a, Vince McMahon guy. So, he'll be safe, but, they've got to do something. And he's, obviously come on TV acting super nice, so he's obviously made it upon himself to try and make it look like he's not bullying anyone. Normally he'd be giving Byron Saxton so much shit every week and saying, "Oh my god, I can't believe you're on SmackDown. I thought I got rid of you." Something like that. As soon as they announced that he was a part of SmackDown, I'm sure JBL would have normally ripped into him, but instead he's like, "Oh, I'm so happy to see you. It's great to have you here." But when the hell does JBL ever say that? So clearly they've told him to don't heel it up anymore. Act like a babyface a little bit and just be nice to everyone for a while. So they know there's some kind of heat there, but they're choosing not to suspend him. They're choosing just to change his character on air. So maybe they've pulled him aside and said, "Look, you got to cut it out backstage. We can't have this anymore." I don't know. We don't know, but something needs to be done. Something needs to be done, and hopefully, JBL can learn his lesson finally. Maybe we need Joey Styles to come back and just knock JBL out again. That's probably what we need. All right, so we'll move on, and a list from Forbes came out this week, the top 10 paid wrestlers in WWE. I thought it was an interesting article. So we'll run through the top 10. Number 10, Randy Orton, 1.9 million. That's pretty surprising, and we'll get to that in a moment. Seth Rollins, 2 million. Undertaker, 2 million. Shane McMahon, 2.2 million. AJ Styles, this one shocked me a big time, 2.4 million. So you can see why I wanted to leave Japan and TNA. Dean Ambrose, 2.7 million. Roman Reigns, 3.5 million. Triple H, 3.8 million. John Cena, 8 million. And Brock Lesnar, $12 million. Well, first of all, Randy Orton is, in my opinion, underpaid. 1.9 million, I think he should be around about that 3 million mark. And second of all, I think the pay for wrestlers clearly has gone up. Because I think, we had some kind of list like this, a couple of years ago, and I remember the Big Show being on it and Sheamus being on it, and they were around about that 1 million mark in the top 10. So clearly, they're paying their wrestlers more. But you do notice there is 3, if you want to include Lesnar as well, 4, of course we're going to include Lesnar, 4 part-time guys on this list as well, which does inflate it. But Seth Rollins, he was out for majority of the year, and he got paid $2 million. Undertaker and Shane McMahon, they're part-time guys, but, there's people ahead of them as well on this list. Undertaker got $2 million, not bad to come back and do a match or two. Shane McMahon, not bad, $2.2 million to be the GM and to have, 2-3 matches. So there you go, not bad, not a bad gig at all. And obviously being, the boss's son doesn't hurt at all. AJ Styles, $2.4 million. I'm very surprised by this because I thought he might be, maybe pushing $1 million. But clearly I feel like they might have had him on like a $1 million deal when they signed him, or maybe even less, maybe $500,000, who knows. And then once they've seen the success of AJ Styles, they probably have renegotiated and given him a bigger deal. And that's why $2.4 million for AJ in his first year in the big time, that's huge. That's fantastic. He's doing great. So well done to AJ. So his family will be certainly set up. Dean Ambrose, $2.7 million. I think, if Randy Orton's getting $1.9 million and Dean Ambrose is getting $2.7 million, well, Ambrose has been overpaid. He's been way overpaid for what he's been producing because he hasn't done anything. So don't be surprised if next year Ambrose is on $1.5 million because he's not anywhere near worth the $2.7 million. And I've been saying for years, wrestlers have been underpaid. A lot of people have been saying, I can't believe Randy Orton gets paid $1 million to be a wrestler. Or Sheamus gets, Big Show's getting paid $1 million to be a wrestler. Well, I can, and I believe wrestlers should be getting paid, what Cena's making, $8 million. Triple H, $3.8 million. I believe they should be getting that money. 4, 5, $10 million. Because these guys work just as hard. You look at the NFL, baseball, NBA, these sports that are just paying outrageous money. Guys getting paid $30 million a year. And you go look at the, English Premier League soccer or football. Sorry, I apologize. I don't want to get murdered for saying soccer, but I call it soccer. And the Spanish soccer leagues, they're getting paid. What is it? Some guys are getting £500,000 a week. So just getting 100 million or whatever a year. It's just outrageous. And wrestlers, they're working 300 days a year. They're putting their body on the line, killing themselves. And if they're only getting paid 200K, that's ridiculous. So they should be getting paid. This list here, I think, is a fair list. I think that's what I would like to see. Because I think we talked about this on the podcast, I feel like a couple of years ago, and I was saying these guys are underpaid. So Roman Reigns is at $3.5 million, and that's their top guy at the moment, and that's a great payday. You notice that Kevin Owens hasn't made this list, and I probably would say he probably would be just pushing $1 million. I can't see him being anywhere near that, above that, because it was obviously his first year on top. So maybe next year he'd get more of a $2 million type of deal. So Roman Reigns $3.5 billion. That's a fair payday. So that's a good effort. Triple H $3.8 million in, what do you do, one match? That's ridiculous. But if that's including his behind the scenes salary, then I guess fair enough. Cena $8 million. I think that's gone up. I remember it being like $4 million at one point. So that's $8 million for Cena. So he's gone up in price. And Lesnar at $12 million. I don't remember it being any more than $10 million. So his payday has gone up since he's renegotiated. So he's making even more money. So there you go. Lesnar obviously, did the UFC thing and obviously boosted his name value big time, and he's, reaping the benefits of that. So $12 million for Brock Lesnar. And once again, I don't think he's deserving that. I think, yes, he's still a big draw and whatever, but what he's producing on TV doesn't represent $12 million for me. So he's getting paid overs. I'd probably pay Lesnar $5 million. $5 million. John Cena, $8 million. I'd probably pay $10 million, to be honest, because he's the guy who's done more for this company than anyone else in the last, decade. So he deserves the money. Lesnar, not so much. Triple H, probably getting paid overs. And Roman Reigns, he's earned that money, 3.5. Ambrose overpaid. Styles, very surprised he's getting that much. So he's, on the right payday. Shane McMahon, Undertaker, Shane's probably overpaid big time, probably $1 million overpaid. Undertaker, yeah, fair enough, $2 million. You can see why he wants to come back for a match once a year, so he gets that $2 million paycheck. Why wouldn't he? Seth Rollins, $2 million. That's surprising as well. I thought, look, if Seth Rollins is $2 million, then Dean Ambrose, should not be anywhere near 2.7. I think Seth Rollins is far above Ambrose, but I guess if you compare the two, Rollins is out majority of the year. And, look, so there you go. There you go. Randy Orton's heavily underpaid. He needs to be probably around about $3 million, in my opinion. Even if he's not, as prominent as he has been, still, Randy Orton is Randy Orton. And for him to be getting probably, I think he's getting $1 million less than where he should be. So it'd be interesting to see, numbers 10 to 20. Where does, how much is Big Show still getting? Probably $1 million. How much is Sheamus getting? Probably over $1 million. So that would be very interesting. So I thought I'd share that. And once again, I still think wrestlers are getting underpaid. Wrestlers, I'm hoping in the next 5-10 years, those paychecks, John Cena, the number one guy in the company, is getting $20 million. I'm hoping. But, we need obviously WWE to, progress further along and make more money so they can, they can pay their wrestlers more. And because, they do so much in that ring. Being a wrestler I just couldn't even imagine it. I just could not imagine that schedule. It's outrageous. And if they're not getting paid, millions, then that's wrong. Even a mid-card guy should be, mid-card guy in WWE should be on like $750K plus, nearly around about that $1 million mark, because, they do a hell of a lot. And, when you see an NFL player gets paid $20 million and they work 4 months, and obviously they train in the off season or whatever. But no disrespect to them, but I watch an NFL game. These guys come on for a play, and they make a tackle, and then they come off, and then they're back on 10 minutes later. So there's not even that. I don't know. I'm not going to start there, but anyways, that's the list. So Lesnar, $12 million. There you go. So let me know. Do you think Lesnar's worth $12 million? So we're pretty much wrapping this up right now. We've got not a lot to really... Got a couple of questions to kind of close it out. This week, what has Brendan been playing? We're going to bring this one back because I've been gaming again. I went ahead and bought a lot of new games this week. I've been back still in the split screen grind. And I've been playing a lot of Rayman. Now, Rayman was one of my childhood games. Rayman 1. I think I would have played Rayman 2 and 3, at least one of them. I remember the 3D aspect. I loved Rayman. Rayman was such a fun game. I loved it so much. And, you know, I looked at Rayman Legends or Rayman Origins, and I thought, that's, you know, looks really kiddie, you know, whatever. I'm not interested. But it was on sale. It was like $10. So I thought, you know what, I'll take the plunge. You know, I enjoyed the original Rayman. It was great. So we'll give this one a go. And it does look like a kid's game. It probably is, but geez, it's such a fun co-op game. And it's a very challenging game as well. So I've been playing a lot of Rayman I finished Rayman Legends, and I've almost finished Rayman Origins. So those are two games I highly recommend. If you have a friend, or for me, for example, my girlfriend, you know, it's a play on the couch, split screen co-op game, and it's so much fun. And Rayman Legends on the PS4, I think it's on the PS3 as well. That's the one you want to get if you want to just get the one game. It's got a lot of content. It's a lot of hours there that you can get out of that game. And it's a lot of fun. So that's one I certainly recommend as well. And on the PlayStation as well, I got Alien Nation. Now, if you've been familiar with Dead Nation, a game that came out about 2010, I believe, you know, it's another game that I definitely recommend if you are looking to play some co-op games. Alien Nation, very similar to Dead Nation. It's basically the sequel of Dead Nation, and you know, you mow down aliens. It's, how do I explain it? It's like a bird's eye view shooter, and it's, you know, give it a look, check it out. It's definitely one I recommend. It's a very cheap game as well. I think I got it for, you know, $5-10, and I actually missed it. I was a big fan of Dead Nation, and I never played. I never heard of Alien Nation. I just kind of forgot it, didn't really notice it. So when I saw this, I didn't even know what it was. I bought it because I, you know, saw it was co-op. It was cheap. It got good reviews. So I'm like, all right, we'll give this a play. And I played the first game of it. And I'm like, wow, this is just like Dead Nation. And then it clicked to me, Alien Nation, Dead Nation. So it took me a while to click. But definitely a game that's been a lot of fun so far. I'm looking forward to playing more of that. So that's one I highly recommend as well. So there's a couple of game recommendations for you if you are looking for some split screen games. If you're a single player gamer, what can I recommend to you? Well, we've seen a few games come out. Tom Clancy came out, Mass Effect came out. I didn't get those two games, so I feel like I wouldn't recommend them. I think those are two games I'm definitely waiting for the price drop. In terms of single player games that's come out recently, I can't really name you a game I would perhaps be suggesting. So I probably would say save your money. Save your money. There's a few games coming out. Obviously, you know, if you have Uncharted 4, the new DLC for that will be coming out soon, so that might be worth a play. I think that's going to be 10 hours, so that's probably something to take a look at. But yeah, so there's not a lot really happening. The recent PlayStation Plus free game, Drawn to Death, hasn't got a lot of players playing it, but I did play it for a couple of days there, and that's one I definitely recommend. If you have PlayStation Plus, and I know a lot of people say, well, the games suck or whatever, but give this one a go. If you like first-person shooters, this game's crazy, it's wacky, it's funny, it's silly. I think it's it's something it's certainly worth checking out as well. I've enjoyed that as well, and it's up to 4 players. So if you've got a few friends to play it as well, you could even have your own private game and play each other, and that would be pretty fun. So that's a couple of games I recommend to you this week. So check those ones out, and if you do, let me know. And we have a couple of questions before we end this week's show, and once again, I do apologise for not posting the thread this week. We did the show a little bit earlier than expected, so we'll get into them. So this one's from Abdo. Who do you think, if there ever will be, someone like The Undertaker? So who do you think will be, and if there ever will be, who's going to be like The Undertaker? Well, the question is, who's going to be 6'9", who can wrestle for 30 years, who can be the same gimmick for 25 years, be the top guy in the company for 25 years, be one of the great workers of all time, have dozens and dozens of classic matches, be an aura, be like a legend, be when you see him, it's special. Who can be like that? I don't know. No one. I don't think there ever will be another Undertaker. I think it's just a once in a lifetime character. The longevity of the Undertaker and the ability to have the same gimmick. And it's a pretty out there gimmick too. And to have the same gimmick to last all these years. Yes, he switched it up a little bit with the badass Undertaker, but that didn't last that long, and he went back to the same type of gimmick. The ability to have that last all these years and be successful. And can you really name a time when the Undertaker was not on top, not a main event guy, not a he might have competed for the mid card title or worked with some mid card guys here and there, but you always felt the Undertaker was the man. He was always a top guy. So it's an unbelievable career. I cannot believe you look at Undertaker's career, you just cannot believe it. It's just special. It's phenomenal, and no, I don't think there ever could be another Undertaker. It's just a rare breed. And finally, we had from John Moynihan, which two WWE superstars do you think could make a great tag team? Well, I'm not sure who I would put together to make a great tag team, but I wanted to answer this in a way of, I think they should be looking to pair a few of their mid-card guys up again. And I get it, they've done that a little bit with like Breezango, they tried Rusev and Jinder Mahal. They've tried it a little bit, and obviously Sheamus and Cesaro, that clicked, that stuck. But I think they should be trying this a little bit more as well. You've got guys like Bo Dallas, Curtis Axel doing nothing. And Apollo Cruz has been doing nothing. They've still got a few legends in the back, Mark Henry, Kane, Big Show. So I'd be pairing, Big Show, Mark Henry with someone. Mark Henry, pair him up, look, Apollo Cruz, he's another, strong guy. And not because he's, black, but Apollo Cruz is a big dude, and he's pretty jacked up. And Mark Henry, he's, world's strongest man, so that could be a decent fit there. Two guys who are doing absolutely nothing. Big Show, well, you could do the Big Show and, Kalisto or something like that, big guy, little guy like they did back with Ray and Big Show. Try that again. I don't know. They just got to do something with these guys who are doing nothing. And I think it's lazy, but an easy way to get people on the show and have more variety in the tag division is to throw a couple of guys together. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but more often than not, I think it's more positive than negative. And a lot of people react negatively to a thrown together tag team. For me personally, I think at least it gives something for some guys to do. There's not a lot of tag teams that have gone from the independents and been wrestling together for 10 years and come to the WWE as a tag team. There's not a lot of them around. Most tag teams form at some point, within the company, whether that be in developmental or on the main roster, and they end up being a great team at some point. So, unless there's, for example, the Usos, where there's a couple of brothers coming around like the Hardy Boys, it's not going to really happen very often. So, sometimes you got to throw two guys together, and sometimes it will work. So, I don't know who would be a great tag team, but I think I'm advocating for them doing it. I'm advocating for them to start trying. Certainly on Smackdown, because there's three teams worth watching on Smackdown. So there you go. That's all we have time for in this edition of the Let's Talk Thursdays podcast. Thank you very much for listening in. We actually went a lot longer than I expected. I thought it was going to be a shorter show this week, but we talked a lot about the Superstar Shakeup. So give me your thoughts and opinions on my show, everything we talked about in today's show in the comment section down below. If you have a question for next week, make sure you do send it in. You can send it in the comment section of this video or over the Facebook page, Brendan Plays Official, or by leaving a voicemail, BrendanPlays.com, clicking the green button on the right-hand side of the page, and of course on the forums as well, BrendanPlays.com/forums. Check out my second channel, link will be in the description down below. Follow me on Twitter at Brendan Plays to stay up to date with everything to do with Brendan Plays, as well as by leaving a like on the Facebook page. Facebook.com/Brendan Plays is the name. I'm getting better at remembering all that. I am. I swear. I'm improving. So, thank you very much for all your support. I appreciate it. If you did enjoy it, make sure you do leave a like, subscribe, see more episodes. Those are the couple of things I missed. And thank you very much for listening in, and I will see you all next Thursday.